Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to give my review of Monday Night Raw. Before the show even takes place, we have Wade Barrett in the ring. He has a microphone in hand. And Wade Barrett announces the new broadcaster, a part of the Raw commentary team, and is none other than Joe Tessitore. Now, if you guys are not familiar with Joe Tessitore, he's had a great career over in ESPN. And a lot of times from what I understand, what Joe Tessitore did in ESPN, he did a lot of the boxing for ESPN. Back in the day, I don't know if you guys are familiar or not, back in the day, ESPN used to put boxing matches on every Friday night. And they were actually decent boxing fights. I'm not sure if ESPN still does that or not. I know they're doing something with Top Rank and stuff like that, and sometimes they, put on fights every Friday night or every other Friday. But back in the day, it was a big deal. And another part of ESPN was ESPN Ringside Classics, where Joe Tessitore would sit down with boxing legends like, Mickey Ward, Arturo Gatti, Jimmy Braddock, and just talk about, different boxing matches and stuff like that happened back in the day. And they would highlight historic matches from Rocky Marciano to Joe Louis to, Jimmy Braddock to Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti, different matches, boxing fights that they had back in the day. And Joe Tessitore is a big part of that. And he was a big part of the boxing scene for ESPN. So bringing him into Monday Night Raw, man, he has, the great voice. He's not a Mauro Ranallo, but he brings in a totally different dynamic to the commentary team for Monday Night Raw. So it's a great addition, not only to WWE, but especially Monday Night Raw. But moving on from that, we go into our first official part of Monday Night Raw. It was Rhea Ripley. She comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. Rhea talks about Bash at Berlin. She also says that she is not done with the Judgment Day. Rhea says that she wants her title back, the title that she had never lost. After that, Dominic Mysterio is here. He ends up grabbing a microphone. Dominic says Liv is still recovering from the beating that she received from Rhea Ripley at Bash at Berlin. Dominic then says Liv will accept Rhea's challenge for the Women's World Heavyweight Championship. Rhea then mocks Dominic. Liv tries to attack Rhea. Rhea then tries to fight off Liv Morgan and Dominic, but Rhea is helped by Priest. Priest comes down to help Rhea Ripley from the attack from Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio. Moving on from that, we go into our first official match of the night. It's the American Made versus Otis Tozawa and Maxine Dupree. I thought it was a decent match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between both teams, with the American Made keeping the pace of the match. Otis hits the worm in the middle of the ring. After that, Maxine then hits a fisherman suplex on Ivy Nile. Maxine then hits Chad Gable. Ivy then applies a Dragon Sleeper. Maxine taps out, and your winners of the match are American Made. After the match, Chad Gable grabs a microphone. He mocks the Wyatt Six. Gable then calls out Uncle Howdy. Gable says that it would be himself versus the Wyatt Six next week in a street fight. Pretty much the American Made versus the Wyatt Six. Uncle Howdy is here with the Wyatt Six. Looks like Uncle Howdy accepts the challenge from Chad Gable. So it looks like we are going to have a street fight here with Chad Gable and Uncle Howdy. Definitely looking forward to that. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's Zelina Vega versus Shayna Baszler. This is kind of a return match for Vega since she's came back from injury. It was a good match, back-and-forth matchup, with Zelina keeping the pace of the match. Zelina hits a moonsault for a near fall, but Shayna hits a leg kick on Zelina, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Shayna Baszler. After the match, the Pure Fusion Collective attacks Zelina. Valkyria comes out to the ring, tries to stop the attack from Pure Fusion Collective, but DeVille and Pure Fusion Collective end up attacking Valkyria. DeVille then grabs a microphone and mocks the women's locker room. Moving on from that, we have a CM Punk segment. CM Punk comes out to the ring. He talks about Bash at Berlin. Punk says that he is not here to make friends, that he is here to make money. Any kind of money that he can make, he is all for it. Punk then talks about Gunther. Punk then calls out Gunther, says he wants a World Heavyweight title shot. After that, Drew McIntyre comes out of nowhere, attacks CM Punk. Drew then hits a Claymore kick. Wade Barrett then tries to stop Drew. Drew then pushes Wade to the side, hits another Claymore kick on Punk. Drew takes back the bracelet. He ends up breaking the bracelet and then hits another Claymore kick on CM Punk. Looks like Drew McIntyre still has some unfinished business with CM Punk. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is a number 1 contenders match for the Intercontinental Championship. It's a tournament matchup. It is Dominic Mysterio versus Dragunov versus Dragon Lee. I thought it was a good match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup with Lee hitting a Hurricane Rana. Mysterio hits a Falcon Arrow in the middle of the ring. Dragunov then hits a powerbomb. Dragunov then hits a Death Valley driver off the apron and looked absolutely brutal. Carlito was here. Carlito then attacks Dragon Lee. Damian Priest is here as well. Damian attacks Carlito. Damian then chases down Dominic Mysterio. Dragunov and Lee then both exchange in the middle of the ring with Lee hitting a powerbomb on Dragunov. Dragunov, though, hits the finish, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and moving on in the Intercontinental Tournament is Dragunov. Hats off to Dragunov for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's a tag team matchup for the number 1 contendership for the women's tag team belts. It is Isla Dawn and Alba Fire versus Damage Control. I thought it was an okay match. Back and forth matchup between both teams with Dawn and Fire keeping the pace of the match. And Dawn and Fire ultimately hit the finish, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match and new number 1 contenders for the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions are Isla Dawn and Alba Fire. Hats off to Dawn and Fire for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a Gunther segment. Gunther comes out to the ring. He talks about Berlin. He also praises Randy Orton. After that, Sami Zayn is here. Zayn talks about the Intercontinental title and that it was the Workhorse Championship. He also mentions multiple legends that held that championship, such as Macho Man Randy Savage, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, and his all-time hero, Bret Hart. Zayn says that he wants a title shot against Gunther. He wants to become World Heavyweight Champion. Gunther then mocks Zayn. Gunther tells Zayn no and walks away. After that, Zayn quickly grabs the microphone and asks Gunther why is he walking away from a challenge where Gunther has never shied away from a challenge. Zayn then says that he is the only person since Gunther's been on the main roster to actually beat Gunther in the squared circle. So it looks like Sami Zayn is trying to go after Gunther's World Heavyweight Championship. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. Again, it's another number 1 contendership for the Intercontinental Championship. It's a tournament matchup. It is Ludwig Kaiser versus Braun Strowman versus Sheamus. Now, originally, it was supposed to be Bronson Reed in this matchup, but he was actually taken out of this matchup due to the fact that he ended up getting COVID and was sent home. The match itself, it was a decent match, back and forth matchup. Kaiser and Sheamus both exchanged in the middle of the ring, with Sheamus keeping the pace of the match. Kaiser hits an enziguri, Sheamus hits a bro kick. Pete Dunne then comes out of nowhere, attacks Sheamus, and then Dunne pretty much knocks out Sheamus with the shillelagh, which allowed Braun Strowman to hit the finish, pins for the 3. And your winner of the match is Braun Strowman. Hats off to Braun Strowman for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our main event of Monday Night Raw. It is Jey Uso teaming up with Damian Priest versus JD McDonough and Finn Balor. Again, I thought it was a good match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between both teams with Jey Uso and Damian Priest keeping the pace of the match. Jey Uso and JD both exchange in the middle of the ring with Jey hitting an enziguri in the middle of the ring. Jey then hits a spear. Liv then attacks Jey. Finn Balor then hits a coup de grace off the top rope. JD then hits a moonsault right after that for a near fall. Rhea Ripley is here. Rhea then attacks Liv. Jey then hits a spear on Finn Balor. Damian then hits a razor's edge. And then Jey Uso hits his signature splash off the top rope, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are Jey Uso and Damian Priest. Hats off to Jey Uso and Damian Priest for getting the win in this matchup. A couple things I want to talk about, man, when it pertains to Monday Night Raw before I get out of here. Was it a good show? Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but the main roster is firing on all cylinders, especially Monday Night Raw. I know last week I said that, SmackDown really needs Roman Reigns back and continue this Bloodline storyline, and they desperately do need Roman to come back into the fold. But Monday Night Raw, man, it was a good show. I mean, I think, to me, the biggest thing that came out of Monday Night Raw was 2 different things. Obviously, number 1 being CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. Obviously, there's some unfinished business there between McIntyre and Punk, and McIntyre decimated CM Punk last night. Punk ended up leaving in an ambulance. He was on a stretcher. McIntyre beat the hell out of CM Punk last night. The other biggest question is Gunther. And what I mean by that is that you also had CM Punk and Sami Zayn call out to Gunther for an opportunity for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, there's a couple of things that are kind of confusing me with this. I know there was a heavy speculation that CM Punk versus Gunther might happen at Survivor Series, and that still might happen. But it looks like, again, Drew McIntyre has some unfinished business with CM Punk, which might lead into a possible steel cage match, who knows, or a Hell in a Cell match, which I'm all for that. On the flip side of the coin, you look at Sami Zayn. And Sami Zayn, from what I understand, it looked like a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, if that, looks like Zayn was going to align himself up with Jey Uso, and both Jey Uso and Sami Zayn were going to go after the tag team championships. But it looks like that's not going to happen. You know, and the biggest wild card, and I hate to bring it up, is Roman Reigns, because Roman is trying to recruit, you know, his old faction back. Is Jey Uso going to be a part of that? Is Zayn going to be working with Jey Uso with Roman Reigns again? Because Sami Zayn was a part of the original bloodline. Is Jimmy coming back? Is he going to be a part of the bloodline? So there's a lot of questions that are still unanswered right now. And some of it does have to do with Roman Reigns. Is Roman Reigns going to line himself back up with his cousins, Jimmy and Jay, and bring back Sami Zayn to realign themselves with Roman to take down the new bloodline, being, you know, headlined right now by Solo Sikoa? Nobody knows. Now, do I think Zayn deserves a title shot? I don't know, man. To be honest with you, I mean, if I had to look between Jey Uso and Sami Zayn, I'd probably say Jey Uso at this point. You know, and I'm a big fan of Sami Zayn. You know, Sami Zayn did a lot of great things with the Intercontinental title. But at this point right now, I don't know who's going to challenge Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. The other, I would say one of the biggest downfalls of last night's show, which y'all may agree and may disagree, the women's tag team #1 contenders match last night, to me, meant absolute shit. And I'll tell you why. We just had this shit for Bash at Berlin, where Isla Dawn, Alba Fire went up against Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair for the women's tag team championships, and Bianca and Jade beat them clean and became the new women's tag team championships. Now, we're going to run it back again. I don't understand it. I think, personally, two things. Number one, the women's world tag team championships is a dead issue. There's not enough women, in my honest opinion, to have, you know, tag teams to go after the title. Number one, the title's a dead issue. Two, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. When you look at the matches with Belair and Jade, and when they team up, Belair's great. Belair is fantastic. That girl, she can wrestle, man. Belair is great. And this is really not a 100% knock on Jade Cargill. But what I will say is, when you look at the matches that Belair has when she teams up with Jade, you have Bianca going in, pretty much doing the majority of the work, and then Jade comes in and does the cleanup. I still till this day, man, I with all due respect to Jade Cargill, and she's a powerhouse, no doubt about it, Jade still needs time to develop as a wrestler. And I think that there's two issues that are kind of running with each other simultaneously when it comes to Jade. Jade left AEW for the simple fact that she was getting up there in age, and obviously creatively wise, she wasn't getting anywhere fast in her eyes with AEW. And maybe that's so. I'm not taking anything away from what Jade did in AEW. She was on that winning streak, and she had great matches, and it was a great build-up for Jade Cargill to get her name out there. Absolutely. But when Jade had signed with WWE, I think the best thing for Jade to do at that time was for her to go to NXT. I know, obviously, she's big on, hey, I don't have many years left, and I understand that. But there needs to be better promos with Jade. Jade needs to stop doing the cleanup every single time. She needs to be a part of a match, and she needs to have a singles run. When she came in and she debuted, I believe it was the Royal Rumble, she looked fantastic. She looked great, and the crowd erupted. Fantastic. But Jade needs to be a singles competitor, man. She needs to be that powerhouse, and she needs to be a force to be reckoned with when it pertains to the women's locker room. And she's not getting that right now. She is playing second fiddle to Bianca Belair, who's the more seasonal wrestler than Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill, to me, is still green as grass, man. There's a lot for Jade to learn. She needs to learn how to cut a promo. And I'm tired of seeing Jade in the aspects of her being in a tag team matchup and playing cleanup every time she's in a tag team match, man. You look at the 6-women tag with the big three, you know. You look at Jade, Naomi, and Bianca Belair. You always see Jade last, and Naomi and Bianca are playing cleanup. You know what I mean? Jade plays cleanup, and, you know, Naomi and Bianca are doing all the damn work. And I need to see Jade, you know, do and have a singles run. That's what needs to happen. The women's tag team division is atrocious. That's a dead concept. The shit does not work. It does not work. And you can go back from the time that Bayley and Mercedes had it, or Sasha Banks. The women's tag team championships is a dead issue, man. It means jack shit. It means nothing. And that's the biggest downfall from last night's Monday Night Raw is that matchup. Because now you have a rematch now where it's the same shit with Isla Dawn, Alba Fire versus Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. We're just going to run it back from what happened at Bash in Berlin when, in fact, Jade and Bianca beat Isla Dawn and Alba Fire clean, got the victory, and walked out of Berlin women's tag team champions. I don't know why we're running that back. To me, that's absolutely pointless. And they have no direction for the women's tag team championships because there is not many women tag teams in WWE. It's a dead concept. It's a dead belt. It's the same thing with AEW with the FTW title. If you guys want to play apples to oranges, look at the FTW title. It means jack shit. You look at the women's tag team championships, it means jack shit. Christ, at this point, I would even one up you and say the AEW trios championships right now mean jack shit. To be honest, I mean, I'm just keeping it real. I mean, people have the tribalism from both AEW and WWE, but it's the same shit, man. The tag team belts mean nothing. FTW title means shit. I don't know how anybody can say what they want and classify that belt. That belt means shit. That belt has not been relevant or actually meant anything since Taz brought it out in ECW. I'm sorry, but it's just the God honest truth. The tag team titles is a dead issue. Honestly, what happened to Bayley and Sasha when they had the belts, they should have just, after that whole situation, they should have just buried those belts and said the hell with it and called it a day. And trust me when I say WWE's had their fair share of belts that were just horrendous and a bad idea. The 24/7 championship, bad idea. We don't need it. We do not need it. You know, you look at someone like Sami Zayn and what he said about the Intercontinental title. It's the Workman's Championship. Absolutely. He said it perfectly. That championship would plateau wrestlers for a world championship opportunity. Opportunities for Austin. Opportunities for Brett. Opportunities for Shawn. He's not wrong. He's absolutely not wrong. Even Gunther said the same thing. And Gunther used that to get the opportunity to get the World Heavyweight Championship. You know, but at the same time, too, I mean, to me, that was the biggest downfall of Monday Night Raw last night. And my standpoint's the same. If you look at Raw and SmackDown, the majority of the highlights of Raw and SmackDown, you have the Judgment Day and Rhea Ripley, Damian Priest, CM Punk, and then on SmackDown, you got the Bloodline and Cody Rhodes. That's pretty much what you're getting on SmackDown and what you're getting on Monday Night Raw. That's what you're getting. You know, Bash of Berlin was great, man. I did a review for that. It was great. The show was fantastic. The fans in Berlin for that event were absolutely amazing, man. The fans were awesome. And I'll say it, I said it then, I'll say it right now. Hopefully WWE continues to have PLEs overseas. I know there's been a lot of speculation about a WrestleMania possibly going over to London. I'm all in, man. I'm all for it. Because the fans overseas, man, are fantastic. I've seen the Backlash event when they were in Puerto Rico. And when they went to France for an event, they just went to Berlin for an event. It's great, man. Australia and Perth, I believe. It was great. I think it was an Elimination Chamber, if I'm not mistaken. It was great. It was absolutely awesome. The fans overseas are amazing, man. And they really do bring life to these PLEs, man. And hopefully WWE continues to do so, man, because obviously it's a big payoff, not only for the fans, but especially WWE as well, man. And I think it's good business all in all for WWE, absolutely. But again, man, Monday Night Raw, it wasn't a bad show. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Raw was awful, Raw was horrendous. I'm not going to sit here and say that. The one negative that I will say about Raw, and my standpoint's the same, is the women's tag team division means absolutely nothing. I don't understand why we're running back the Bianca Belair and Isla Dawn Alba Fire match, because they just had that this past Saturday at Bash of Berlin, so I don't know why we're running that back. And the women's tag team titles mean absolutely nothing for WWE. I'm sorry. It's just... It's a meaningless title. It means nothing. They don't even have a women's tag team division. They're putting tag teams together like off the fly. It means nothing. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Zelina Vega teaming up with Valkyria to go after those tag team belts too. Because right now they don't have anything really lined up for Zelina Vega. Nothing. You know, AEW's on the same boat. It's not that I'm having tribalism like, oh, I hate WWE and oh, I'm all for AEW. No, I'm not. FTW Championship means jack shit, like I mentioned earlier, as well as the Trios titles, man. It means absolutely nothing. How many times you got to unify those Trios Championships for actually people to give a shit about them? Come on. Seriously. Why? Because you want to make Ring of Honor relevant? Get the hell out of here. Ring of Honor is a dead product. It's dead. It doesn't mean anything anymore. It doesn't hold any kind of weight anymore. It doesn't. It's not the same. Ever since Tony Khan bought and purchased Ring of Honor has been in the damn toilet. I'm sorry. Athena needs to get the hell away from Ring of Honor, and she needs to be on AEW. She is wasting her career away being on Ring of Honor. Might be a hot take for most people, but I'm sorry, folks. That is the God-honest truth. She is wasting her talent away being over at Ring of Honor. And that's the truth. But besides all that, we were here for Monday Night Raw. Was it a good show? Yes, it was a good show. And again, the couple takeaways that I'll take away from Monday Night Raw last night was who's going to be next for Gunther? And what's going to happen here between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre? And who's going to be the next person to challenge Gunther for the World Heavyweight title? But with that being said, this is my review of Monday Night Raw. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful. And remember, stay classic. Peace.